Thanks for tuning in to the Hail Mary podcast, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and beyond. I'm your host, Mary Rominger, and we have a very special guest lined up for today's episode. In honor of Hockey Day Minnesota being in Mankato, former Minnesota State Maverick men's hockey forward Matt Leitner joins us, and his career was one that still ranks atop all-time performances for the Minnesota State men's hockey program. He is first in all-time assists. He ranks second in all-time scoring. He'll be participating in the alumni game Friday night leading up to Hockey Day on Saturday, where the Minnesota State men's team, currently ranked second, will take on St. Thomas. And fun fact, Leitner is from Los Alamitos, California, my hometown, maybe some of my listeners' hometown. So we'll see how he ended up in Mankato playing hockey, his extensive juniors career, and he is quite the storyteller. So I am very excited for you guys to listen to this episode. If you could sum up Leitner's playing college career in a one sentence, it's the fact that he was a playmaker like no other and was no doubt a fan favorite. Here he is. Matt, alumni game aside, the temperatures for Friday night are going to be frigid. I can speak from experience after being out in Mankato in the outdoor rink all week long. Is that something you've mentally prepared for, or is that not even on your radar?
Yeah, no, moving from California, I think just getting used to the cold. I've kind of always prided myself on not being the California kid that complains about these things, right? And like kind of bears with it. But living here now for over 10 years, it's kind of like I'm used to it. And I think, I tell myself all these positive things about playing in the cold, about, when you're out there competing, it kind of warms you up, right? Like just moving around and doing things like that. So I'm ready for it. I have a dog. I walk every morning in the cold. So I think I'm ready for it as much as I can be.
You've alluded to it. You're of course from Los Alamitos, California, the same hometown that I'm from, which being in Minnesota, it's nice to have some sort of hometown connection because typically it's not me. And so I guess starting all the way from the beginning, we have lots to get to in the successful college career that you had, even a little bit professionally, and now leading up to why you'll be back in your college town for the Minnesota State men's hockey alumni game. But you started playing hockey in Los Al. I imagine roller hockey was your start. Yeah. I don't know how much ice hockey you were doing, but just tell me what got you into hockey and so forth.
Yeah, so I mean, I played just about every sport growing up, starting at a super young age. I had a brother who was 2 years older, and obviously Los Alamitos not known for hockey or anything like that, but when I was, I'm a little bit older than you are. When I was first growing up as a young child, Wayne Gretzky, he got traded to the LA Kings kind of around that time. And I think hockey really took off as a whole. And I was kind of part of that. I just loved it. We started playing like outdoor hockey when I was like 3 years old. And it was like me and my brother were on the same team. We would go and play with like a ball outside. It was nice and warm. And then it just kind of turned into signing up for ice hockey and roller hockey, and pretty much playing all year round with the roller hockey and the ice hockey in the winter and roller hockey in the summer, but also just playing. I played baseball, soccer, football, almost every sport, like the whole year. So I always wanted to just play sports. That was like really my passion as a young child, and still really is. So it was kind of easy for me to transition into, becoming serious and really working on my hockey, and then leaving when I was 16 years old to kind of pursue it. I just kind of kept growing in the sport, and it kind of led me to, Mankato and junior hockey and everything that kind of followed. So it was kind of a transition of just being in love with sport, and hockey was kind of like what I was best at. And it was obviously the most fun for me because I was pretty good at it. So it made it fun. And I actually have a lot of friends that are from California. My team was always really competitive. We won a national championship when I was 14 in the 16 AAA. youth hockey. So like we were good. We had Max DeCastro who played at Boston University. We had Mitch Wall, who was a second round NHL draft pick. We had Troy Power, who played at UMass. Like we had a lot of guys that went on to play elsewhere. So like it wasn't like so unfamiliar to play with like, big time players and kind of be on that stage, that because we always went to the big tournaments. We played all the Michigan teams. We played Shattuck, so familiar with hockey, and we were traveling all the time to different tournaments out in the cold weather.
So I remember in high school, all that the Los Al Griffins had were a club hockey team. Did you even get to that point, or were you already going off and playing juniors? I saw Springfield, Massachusetts is where you first landed.
No, you might have been thinking of my brother, but we had a roller hockey team that started. So like I said, I went to Los Al. I think my freshman year was 04. So it was a little bit older, right? So but yeah, there was no hockey, and it started when I was my last year, so I was a sophomore, and we started just like a club roller hockey team, and we played out of one of the local rinks with just a few teams. And that was kind of fun, but it wasn't serious. It was more of like just a fun thing to do with the school. It was like a club, like almost like a chess club or whatever other kind of
Yeah.
club you think of. But really I played high school basketball for Los Al, and football as well. I played football for like 12 years. So I was familiar with those things as well, and like going from sport to sport. But once I started getting older in high school, it was really tough. Like the coaches were a little bit more serious. Like when I was younger, it was okay to show up just for the games and play. But as I got into high school, and like I was gone a lot for hockey just because we had such a, we would travel all the time. So it
Mhm.
made it harder to kind of play basketball and play football. And as those things were fun for me, I knew that, hockey was the number one priority. And yeah, back then there wasn't much besides just the traveling team, which like I alluded to was pretty good. And we had a lot of success. So that's kind of what it was for me in high school. But a lot of people didn't know. It's hard for me to like be around my friends, because all my friends were like, "Oh, we're going to the football game. Oh, we're doing this, we're doing that." It's like, "Oh, I'm gone, this weekend, or I have practice tonight." So really, a lot of my friends, like I don't have that many friends from California anymore, but like it's family, and then like some of my longtime friends are from playing travel hockey, not so much high school. There's a couple that I keep in touch with a little bit, but like a lot of my friends came from just because I was gone so much and traveling and doing kind of like the hockey thing.
The way that I look at your career in my mind, so it seems like we have about a 5-year age gap. Um, when the Kings won their 2 Stanley Cups in 3 years is when you were off playing hockey with Minnesota State Mankato. And before that was your high school career,
Yep.
and some juniors in there.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you wanted me to allude to you. Yeah. So I left after my sophomore year. I was 16 or 15 at the time, and I turned 16 in November. Yeah. So I went to Ohio, actually Columbus, Ohio. Um, in the USHL, I was drafted in the second round, and I actually was able to play with my brother. So we both went and played in the USHL. He had already been playing in the NAHL, the North American Hockey League, with some success. So when I got drafted, I was like, "Hey, can my brother, come along, like for tryouts or whatever?" Then and we both did really well. And I was obviously a little younger; he was older, but we had a lot of success, and we played, that whole year together. Um, on the line too. So it was like fun. We got into like a 2-on-2 fight one time, like in Green Bay, and that was like super cool. Like just being with your brother and being around him, and kind of having that piece of home for me when I left at first. And it was fun. We had finished with like we were 1 point apart, so he had 36 points, I had 35. So it's kind of like competitive thing. That was kind of fun. And then I played from there. Our team kind of moved. The Columbus franchise folded, and we moved to Fargo, the remaining players. And my brother went off to college at that time in Springfield, Massachusetts, at American International College, which I wanted him to come because he had one more year. But then in Fargo, I met some of the guys that I went to Mankato with, like Corey Lieberman and Chase Grant were there in Fargo, along with some other really good players, a lot of Gophers. Luke Gukowski was a captain who plays in the NHL still. A lot of talented guys, and we went to two Clark Cup finals. Unfortunately, coming out on the wrong end, being up and losing in the finals is never fun. But it was fun because we were so young, and and it was juniors, like I was in high school still. So it was like the school part, but also, being in Fargo, it's kind of like the whole town knows you. So it was my first kind of taste at that, right? Where it's like, holy crap, I'm playing in front of a lot of people, and these people see me outside at like the grocery store and things like that, and they know who I am. So it was kind of cool because that was my first experience with that. And then, easy transition into Mankato, where I did have to sit out a year. So I took a full year after playing like 200 USHL games or whatever it was. I had some trouble with my academics at the time. So had to really figure that out. And it was kind of a big learning experience for me, just sitting out. I didn't really play hockey for 18 months, before my college career actually started. So it's like I'm sitting there, watching games, and I couldn't even practice. So it was kind of a learning and just like changed my mindset completely. It was always hockey, hockey, hockey. And then it was like, holy, I got to see what's going on with the rest of life, and figure out, how I'm gonna do this. I know I have my college career ahead of me, but like, this is what it looks like, and I have to kind of work towards building up other things, right? And so it was a cool experience, and I gained a lot of lifelong friends, obviously, with college, and kind of went from there. But it was a fun experience. I had a lot of ups and downs, but along the way. But it was definitely something I don't regret, and it was awesome.
What you just described, athletes going through injuries and realizing that the sport can't be their entire life in some instances, and maybe not injury, but just sitting out and not playing, is what a lot of regular people like myself experience when COVID happened. It's like, okay, I don't have sports to report on. What am I going to do
Yeah.
outside of that? And then you really learn who you are and what makes you happy outside of your hobby or passion. So that's probably a good thing that it happened to you before you got into your college career, I
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah, no, it was a good experience. And obviously I had, I came in with a class of 9. I wasn't playing, but like I came with like Chase and Corey, who were in Fargo with me. So I was really familiar after 2 years with them, and Mankato, and Corey being from Mankato, and he's, those two guys were just in my wedding. So like they're some of my best friends. And like Corey being from Mankato, so his family was there. And then like, obviously the school was amazing, and Coach Troy Jetting was there at the time. Bluey and Nodder, those guys were amazing and kind of welcoming me. And yeah, it took some time. Like I obviously, with all my friends there and like not playing, I got into like socializing more, and doing kind of those things. And they were like,
What's
get your
that?
grade. The two things that were big important for me at the time, thinking way back then, was gaining weight, and going to school and getting good grades. So like, I had nothing else to do. So like school wasn't that hard for me. I just kind of like, before I was lazy and played hockey and thought of it, it's like, oh, I'll get it done, kind of like the minimum. But then when college happened, it's like, okay, now you got to go to school, and then you got to kind of like do other things to occupy your time, that hockey's not here. So like, and putting on weight at that time was like, okay, I'm going to go to the cafeteria. So I think the coaches, they kind of regretted telling me that, because I put on, I don't want to over exaggerate here, but I put on close to 50 pounds.
Holy,
And it wasn't the good kind of weight. So like, getting back into it was a lot tougher than what I thought, because I was always really small. Like I'm still on the shorter side, but filled out a little more now as I'm old. But like when I was younger, I was really small, and like that was like the thing that kind of like held me back in a way. I still had a lot of success, but like if there was one thing, it was like getting stronger and being able to play against older people. So once I jumped back into it, like the spring, once they lost, their season was over, it's like, okay, you could start training again. Whew. It was a lot of very tough workouts that I had to go through. And that whole first year, my freshman year, I had some success, and I led the team in points that year, but it was kind of a down year for me, just personally. I just wasn't at where I should be, because it was like I'm still trying to recover my legs and recover my whole body, just from basically putting it through nothing but eating. And I don't know what kind of radio podcast, but I did some drinking, for a full, 16 to 18 months, where it's like, shoot, I really gotta work to get back to even, where I was before. And so that part was a little tough on me mentally. But I think as I worked through it, I had such good friends, and we had all had the same goal, right? Which is so great about college. It's just like you're so focused on doing things and winning as a team and kind of building camaraderie. So like that part really helped, just being with those guys.
You mentioned your size, and I was talking to Paul Allen, who is the athletic director at Minnesota State Mankato, right before I jumped on this call with you, just to see if there were any additional tidbits he could give me about your playing time at Minnesota State. And he mentioned, well, there's so many similarities between Matt and Nathan Smith. They both have a roller hockey background. They're great playmakers, and their offensive talents are beyond what a lot of people have. And he mentioned the size being kind of the only difference between you and Nathan Smith. Nathan Smith, who was just awarded the opportunity to go play for Team USA in Beijing, China in the Olympics that start next month. He's also a Hobie Baker nominee this time of year, and you'll be seeing him. But bringing it back just for a quick question, you played with top tier talent in California that gave you a taste of, okay, this is going to take a lot of dedication to make it far in the sport. Was your mind focused on playing in the NHL when you were shipping yourself off to Columbus, Ohio to take the sport seriously?
Yeah, and I think, being from California, I've always had like kind of like a loosey goosey kind of mindset, like, hey, like let's go with the flow and do all the things. But I think definitely in the back of my mind, I was like, I think I'm good enough, to get there. I know I can think the game just about as good as anybody. Just like, it's really simple. You try to create odd man opportunities, whether with the puck or without it, without giving up chances, right? Like I played also, like basketball was very similar. I used things that I brought from basketball into hockey. It's like you're protecting the rim, right? Like you're protecting the net. And then football as well, like the physicality and being able to use body position and things like that. It was just like I brought a lot of this in my mind. I thought like I'm better than anyone with thinking the game, but like the things that held me back were just like strength and I wasn't the fastest. Like Nathan Smith, I think go out there and say like I think he should be definitely the front runner for Hobie. If I'm not him, Dryden McKay, they've been the top team this year, and I think it's showed. But and I think he's got a lot more tools than I had. But I was really built off just like being competitive and wanting to win so badly. Like I couldn't skate the fastest. I wasn't even close. I wasn't the biggest. I couldn't shoot very hard. Like I had to get it done by thinking my way around the game and winning faceoffs and blocking shots and just doing those things. And I think that stuff really started to like get noticed by people. And I think that's when I was like, okay, maybe I do have a chance. And like, going up against a guy like Teddy Bluger, right, who's like been in the NHL now for 3 years. He was the other center on our team in Mankato for the last 3 years I was there. So like having him push me, I was pushing him, and like we're always kind of 1 and 2 in the middle there for our team. So I was like, Teddy's faster, man. Like I said, I got into my social life was very important to me, like my friends and doing things outside of hockey. So like I wasn't willing to put in as much work in like the weight room and stuff than some of those other guys, which good for them, right? Like he's in the NHL and it's what he wanted to do. I would rather go have a beer and watch the game than than be in the weight room and training. But so to keep up with him, it was just like every day in practice, just like going back and forth. So it was like you had to learn how to compete in like a different way. And I think that's kind of what I did. I think Nathan Smith, he's got a lot more, skating skill and like hands and stuff like that. And the roller hockey makes it, you kind of learn how to use the time and space that you're given. So those little things in the game is kind of what I thought about, and just getting the advantage on the other team. Um, yeah. So I forgot what your original question. I keep getting off on these tangents.
No, it's great. I asked if your NHL
Oh,
aspirations were at the forefront of your mind when you were
yeah.
pursuing hockey, but it sounds like you were just looking at it from a realistic perspective of what you had to offer and what you were willing to dedicate.
Yeah. I really just like when I was in college, I was so focused on just like winning winning a national championship, going to like trying to make, because when I got there, that Mankato wasn't one of the top teams. So my goal was just like put us in that conversation, right? Like be the player that I know. Cause like I had just had success in the USHL and like led those teams. I wasn't like captain or whatever, but I led the team in points and had, was kind of like the playmaker on the team. So I kind of brought that in, like, I could do this. I'm better than the top guys that just went to Minnesota. They're behind me in the lineup. I was beating them, played against Anders Lee in the finals. I was same level as those guys. So like, I was like, let's get Mankato on the map, right? Like I was so focused on just like winning all the time. And I think that had to be my mindset because like I said, I wasn't going to do a lot of the other things or skate by people. But, and then afterwards, you want to get a shot. And like, I kind of realized right away, it's like, maybe my game isn't made for professional hockey, and I, like I said, I wasn't going to dedicate my whole summers to hockey and training and stuff. During the summer is like my time to enjoy the lake, right, and enjoy other things. And that's a choice I made early on. Like when I was that year out, is like I'm gonna try my best and like do everything I can for where I'm at. And like I did the same thing when I went to professional hockey. It's like I went to Sweden, I came back, I went to the Florida Panthers rookie camp, I went to the AHL camps every summer. And then I played in the same ECHL team for 3 years, like never got traded. It was just all about winning with those guys, right? Like those guys became some of my best friends as well, playing alongside a lot of talented guys there. And we had a lot of success there. And I had a lot of call-ups to the American Hockey League, but I realized right away, it's like, I'm probably not going to make it to the NHL. So more so just having fun and trying to win as much as I can. I'm just ultra competitive. That's really all I think about every time. Like I'm on the ice, like even, playing, it's like not necessarily about making the most money and making it to the NHL. It's just like trying to win tonight or trying to win everything. Like I'll probably show that a little too much tomorrow, just because now that I don't compete as regularly, it's like when I get a chance to, it's like, oh, I still want to win, so hopefully some of the guys on the team feel the same way. But if not, I'll obviously be in a good mood.
So I was introduced to the Minnesota State men's hockey team in 2019 when I got my first job in Mankato, and quickly realized that the program is very prestigious, brings in a lot of talent, is knocking on the door for an NCAA championship, and is just a fantastic, well-rounded team. Led by head coach Mike Hastings. And so a quick story, I was doing some in-person interviews with David Cilia, Dryden McKay, and Reggie Lutz earlier this season. And they have in the Maverick facility, there's a massive wall of all of the amazing accomplishments from all of the past MSU hockey players. And I saw Matt Leitner. And I was like, that name sounds so familiar, from Los Alamitos, California. Now, wait, because I know I said your last name wrong. And I was like, California, Matt Leitner. And I was a USC football fan for a big portion of my life. So I'm like, that name sounds so familiar. I think I know this kid.
Yeah.
Come to find out, I'm just thinking of the former USC quarterback name, and you just were from a similar, from the same hometown. So I didn't know you. But then I looked into your career further, and I saw that, wow, like you've mentioned being competitive, wanting to win, and leading a couple teams offensively. But as it stands now, you're still the leader in assists all time and number 2 in goals, not by much at this point, but that's impressive for how much talent this program has.
Well, I think I'm 2 in points, tied for second in points with Michaelis, who just tied me, but he should have passed me. I got to give it up, because the COVID cut their season short. So he's tied with me, but he got cut short. And so, he would have passed me, but that's okay. He wouldn't have caught my assist record. So, and I think like I said, MSU was amazing. Like after that first year, it was kind of a slow start. And then we went on a 9-game winning streak my sophomore year. And it was like, Uriah Hay, and like, we had some of the older guys really contributing, and myself, and we had JP LaFontaine. We had a good team. We knew it. And that's when Hastings took over his first year. And he did.
That's when you weren't playing, right? So the 4 years.
That's when I was playing.
Okay, yeah, so it was your first year that you went through the coaching change from Todd to Mike.
Yep.
Okay.
So my freshman year, I played for Troy Jetting and
Troy.
Bowie, and so my freshman year I played, and like I said, I had a great relationship with Troy too, and I don't want to, like he was a good coach for me at the time, and he really helped me get into school. Him and Kevin Biesman, the athletic director, um, they did a lot for me, which because I really I underplay it, but like I struggled academically, and it's something I look back on that's like one regret I do have, but like they helped me get me into school, and like so Troy, I can't thank him enough, and things like that. But then once Mike got there, it's like a switch kind of flipped for everyone. And like, yeah, I led the team in points the year before, but it was only like 29 points or something like that. So then the following year, we struggled out of the gate. We played Denver in a really hard schedule, and we like lost some really close games. We're like, okay, we're as good as these teams. Now we got to start winning. And Hastings really drove that home, and we went on like a 9-game win streak in the middle of that year, like against Wisconsin, and we beat some good teams, we Alaska teams. So we kind of started turning the corner, and that's just when it started kind of rolling, and getting the ball rolling with winning. And now I look at it today, and it's like, whew, man, they win a lot of games, and it's awesome because I know where kind of like we started, and that first year was tough, and even watching the year before, like they were losing a lot of games, it was just a lot, and it sucks to lose, right? Like especially, it is what it is, but like once we started turning around, it's like now the ball is rolling. You could see Hastings just like his mindset get in with the team, and we really believed in each other and believed in how good we were. So once that ball rolling, now you look at it, it's like they get a lot of top end talent, and it's awesome to see, and Nodder and Blue and those guys do a great job. The new coach there, it's like I still communicate. I go to a lot of alumni events. I actually graduated with my master's last year. I went back to Mankato, and Paul Allen kind of helped me in Biesman again, helped me get into grad school, and got my master's in sports management. So those guys have helped me a lot, and obviously everything I've done is like a reflection of just like lessons I've learned. And I was lucky too. I had amazing coaches wherever I went. Growing up, I had Mike Lewis, who was with a military background, African American man, who just like taught me a lot about just respect and being accountable. Then juniors, I had Dean Blaze, and Chad and Steve Johnson, and then I got Hastings, and it's like I have all these amazing coaches. Like I had to learn a little bit from each one, right? Like you have to take a little bit with you. And Hastings taught me so much, and he still does. Like we talk, and I see him at all these events, and they're great people. First and foremost, they're great people, and I'm sure you hear that a lot just around the program, and that kind of sets the tone. He's the tone setter, right? And him being a great person and what he is kind of attracts what you're around. So I was lucky enough to be just he was stuck with me, and I think he would tell you that I put him through a lot of hard times, I'll say. I wasn't the easiest to coach, but like, yeah, when I showed up, I was ready to compete. So I think maybe that's what he appreciated and saw in me. So
So your senior year, to my understanding, is when the program reached ranked first in the nation for the first time in program history. And you mentioned, where it started and to see where the program is now. I mean, you were on that team that really flipped the switch to the direction that MSU is now. I talked to players that transfer or rookies that come in, and you don't even have to ask them like, why Mankato, because it's all the same answer. Like, well, why not? It's a top tier program in the country. But you mentioned the belief that you guys had in yourself and Coach Mike Hastings leading you guys along the way. What specifically can you remember happened that elevated the team from a maybe close to a 500 record your freshman year to then only having 10 or less losses your senior
yeah,
year?
no, yeah, and that senior year was amazing. We were number one a lot of the time. We beat a lot of good teams,
And then made it to the NCAA, which
well,
also I want to mention. I want to talk about the RIT loss, but continue.
yeah, that's it's a lot of sore subject. We made it to the NCAA tournament, by the way, my last 3 years. So it wasn't just that last year. That
Gotcha.
year we were the number one overall seed, but the time before that we were a number 2 seed. The time before that we were a 3 seed. So we made it 3 years in a row. So we were a
Nice.
good team, kind of building up.
Mhm.
But yeah, just the transformation. I think just accountability with everybody. Like myself included, like I was obviously one of the players that needed to be more accountable as a young, I wasn't that young as a pro. I was thinking 21, 22, but like being accountable on the ice away from the rink and just everything. And then they're going to treat us right, right? Like we weren't necessarily being, but because maybe the program kind of invested a little more in us, we wanted to invest in them, right? Like we started getting meals after practice, and they renovated the locker room. They were going to renovate the rink and all this new stuff. It's like, okay, like these guys are really putting in the time, like the effort to make our lives better. Like let's try to put it together, and just like, and if you didn't do it, you weren't going to play, because there was plenty of guys that were capable and able to play that wanted to play. So like that's something Hastings, like you could go out there and mess around, but you're gonna sit on the bench, you're gonna be miserable, or we're gonna skate and drag you guys out on the ice and make you guys stay out there for 2 hours and things like that. And I have a funny story just about that, just about kind of being accountable. We never had like punishments in like college classes. Some of them, especially when you're younger, it's like lecture halls and all this stuff, and we had never had like class checks before. So like, and me being, of course, the academic superstar I was at the time, um, they started doing class checks when Hastings was there. We didn't know yet. So he showed up to one of my classes and I wasn't there. I decided to sleep in and skip the lecture hall, something that I don't think people should do, but it happened. I was, sleeping in, getting my rest. And he calls me in early and he's like, "Oh, you weren't at class today. Like, you're going to pay for that." And I was like, "Okay, like, what does this guy mean? He's going to make me work out." So he made me put on all my gear besides my skates. So helmet, gloves, everything, puts the bike on the bench. And he says, during this whole practice, he had the trainer sit there the whole time, and I had to keep it above 90 RPMs, which is like kind of quick for a bike. So, and I had to do it the whole practice. And if I stopped, he would just make me keep going. So like I rode that, and he had it, of course, it was a 2-hour practice. So I sat there full gear, other than my skates, riding a bike while they practiced. And it was just like things like that. Just, and like, if we had a lot of penalties, he would skate us for that. And like, just being accountable, and really, because we had the talent. I think that's kind of one of the reasons why he took the job or really wanted the job, was because we had our freshman class was good. It was me, LaFontaine, and Gady. We had some guys that were really playing, and some older guys that we knew could help as well, and like that were pretty good. So he knew that we had talent. It was just about turning the page and making it from Mankato, were the hard workers who can't beat the big dogs, to we could be the big dog. We could be the big dogs, right? Like we've already seen it in junior. We could beat these guys. So that's kind of what changed, just the accountability and sticking together. And Hastings is big on family and just doing everything right. So when you start doing that off the ice, it's going to translate on the ice, and everyone's going to get better. So.
Well, that's good. And that shows that there's a lot of respect for Hastings, because I think if I were to experience that my senior year of high school lacrosse, I wouldn't receive it in the way it sounds like you received it. But I love the mention of accountability and just the responsibility you take for your dedication versus what you were willing to do, and what your expectations for like the rest of your life or your hockey career was. Because I mean, even something that's a little bit more relatable to other people, like in my career, play-by-play was always something that really interested me and made me feel so fulfilled. But the amount of dedication and practice and effort you have to put in is not something I was willing to do in college. And that's what I tell people. So to hear you explain your experience in a similar manner is definitely relatable. Now, I know you mentioned it's a sour taste in your mouth, and I'm sure it's going to be, I mean, you mentioned going to a lot of alumni events, something that's brought up frequently. I know there's a hashtag, Palmquist was pushed. So against RIT, there was depending on what side you fall on, but I think the video evidence is proof enough for itself that a goalie interference penalty was missed, which was the eventual game winner. And that's kind of the way you had to end your college hockey career. But obviously you went on to play in the AHL. Now, years later, is that still something, like you said? I mean, you kind of alluded to it, sour taste in your mouth.
Oh, I mean, I don't want to say it haunts me, because that's a strong word, and I still, live happy life and try to stay positive throughout. But that RIT loss, man, that was a just as a senior and everything that I had gone through at the time, it's just like it was such a hard pill to swallow. Like it was the years before that we were in the tournament and it was just like, okay, we were playing Miami, who was a good team. We're like we could beat them, but like they might be a little better than us. Not I never said this or thought it, but I was like, these teams are good. And then we played UMass Lowell, who was a really good team the following year. It's like we're gonna try to win and we want to win, but like that senior year, we only had like 8 losses. We were such a good team. We thought we were going to win it all. Like, we were like, okay, now we've been to the tournament. Now it's like time to win a game, win another, and like get there, right? Like we were so excited to have that opportunity. And it was like the number 1 overall seed. Like we were the number 1 team in the country going into it. And it's just like RIT was like squeaked in. I think they were like 50th or something. So I was like, but we knew that they had a couple good players. And so like the whole game played out and it's just like we weren't, there was no one in the building. It was not, I'm not going to blame anything or make excuses. We didn't play our best. Right. And we shied away for the stage and everything else. And that happened. But yeah, it was a really tough day, tough night, tough couple weeks for me. Just like I had poured so much into it that it was tough at the time. It still is tough to talk about. Just like getting back to the way I felt back then, it was like it was tough. Like even weeks after, like people would call me to go play. Hey, you want to come join our team for to play professional hockey or whatever? And it's like, no, I don't. Like I'm not really in the headspace to play right. Like I couldn't care about anything. Like I was like, I don't want to go try to care about a playoff with guys I don't even know. Like I just lost with all my best friends and everything else. So it's like I didn't want to deal with things for a while. So that's what I did, and that's probably didn't help me overall, but like it was a tough pill to swallow, and like looking back on it, it still is tough. But now seeing the program where it is today, and them making the Final Four last year, it's just like they finally did it, and I was so proud of those guys and Hastings and Nod are just really happy for the program. So to see them this year again, it's like they're gonna keep pushing and knocking on that door until they knock it all down. So. You got a big fan in me and obviously knowing everything about the program and just everything, it's like go Mavericks all the time. So big pride in the Mavericks, also a LA sports fan, so got to rep the Rams and
Go Rams in the
go
playoffs.
Rams.
Next,
I was
gonna
like,
beat the Buccaneers.
do I wear a Mavericks shirt on this thing or do I wear Los Alamitos girl, let's rock the Rams this week because I got faith in the Mavericks this week. Nothing against St. Thomas, they're an up and coming program, obviously, but
Mm-hmm.
I got faith in the Mavericks. The Rams might need a little more push, so I'm trying to get on the Ram train this
A little
this
bit
week.
more playoff implication with it
Yeah,
literally
yeah,
being the playoffs. So
yep.
it is so important with those games that no one attends or smaller rinks because 2 of the Mavericks 5 losses or 4 losses this season have come in smaller rinks on the road that they just didn't come out and play that the way that they needed to. So I think that really does have a big impact. There's even a couple Pac-12 teams that were undefeated to start the year, college basketball, and the Pac-12 limits fans now, and then those winning streaks came to an end recently. So that really, I've noticed, deflates teams a little bit, or not deflates, but it just doesn't bring out the energy that a lot of teams need. And if I were in your position, yes, the team made it, or the Mavericks made it to the NCAA Frozen Four recently, ranked first for the past 4 weeks now, ranked second in the USCHO national rankings. But you're walking up still as the program leader in goals, still, in assists, and then a leader in goals. Just, I don't have a big ego, but I would still walk kind of like I'm a big shot.
Well, there's other, guys that I played with went on and are having good NHL careers. Bluger and
Mhm.
Casey Nelson played in the NHL, and certain other guys did a lot of more things outside of the Maverick program that they could probably pump their chest out a little bit too. But yeah, I mean, I do. I show up at these events and I'm not just by the over by the wall whispering to myself. I talk to guys and some
Yeah.
of even the current guys. I have a relationship. Benton Moss, I actually wrote a letter of recommendation for him to get into grad school
Oh,
because
nice.
he did part-time work for us where I work now and did some training with us. And some of the other guys I still know just from events and things like that. And I always say, people are welcome to catch me if they can, but it's a tough, 100 and however many assists is tough to catch. And, I did it more so because I was such a bad shooter that I didn't even look to shoot. Like in my senior year, I had whatever 9 goals or something and like 30 something assists. But like
And
I
led the
always had,
team.
I always had really good teammates too. Like I had Uriah Hayes, I had, Johnny
Mhm.
McKennis who's coming this weekend. I had um, uh, Bryce Gervais, who was my line mate for a couple of years, who put up a lot of goals with me, like a lot of game winners. JP LaFontaine, like I mentioned, Palmquist, just a lot of good teammates, and they did a lot of the scoring. I was just kind of like, hey, let's put, I'll give you the puck in a good position and see if you could bury it, right? But yeah,
Right.
I do razz some people and let them know that I still have records and I'm still one of the
Let me know
one of
when
the
you reach my assist
yeah
record and then we'll
yeah
talk.
no yeah I'm not shy about letting people know. I think people would know that about me. Like I do love to compete, and I try to be humble at times, but when I'm on the ice, I'm pretty ruthless, and so I'll trip. You might see me this on Friday night giving some guys, and I think I don't want to be arrogant again, but like I could still play a little bit. So we'll see how it goes. But I expect a performance, and I think our team is looking to have some success against those guys and a little bragging rights for the evening at least, or some events coming up. So and then like obviously playing against like Bacchus and some of those guys that played long careers in the NHL is
That's
just
what I
like
wanted to ask you about is seeing, I mean,
yeah
the reason why this alumni game is so special for those that don't know listening. This is Hockey Day in Minnesota, a massive event. The alumni game is leading up to Hockey Day in Minnesota, hosted in Mankato this year. So there's players flying from out of country. It's just a massive reunion that we don't typically see on any given year.
Yeah, no, and Hockey Day in Minnesota is such an awesome thing. I coming from California and seeing like just all the tradition and stuff with Minnesota and hockey. It's so cool, like just to be around, especially being a hockey player myself. Like going back, it's like there's nothing really about hockey, but now you come here and it's like Hockey Day in Minnesota and Mankato. What I've seen and what I've heard from people is like they're doing such an amazing job at hosting this event, and everything looks amazing and things like that. And like the grounds crew, like Bruce Lieberman, who's the Corey Lieberman's dad, is like the head of the group. So like they do an amazing job. Like just wanted to give him a shout out. But it's awesome, like seeing Carter, Bacchus, and being able to play against these guys, and just and seeing everyone. I've met just about most people, like being around the program for 10 years now. You meet a lot of people, and a lot of my friends are going. McKinnis, even guys that aren't playing, like Evan Carambellis, who was our goalie back then, who's one of my best friends, and Danny Heath, who does Project Hockey, who has a tent there and stuff like that. It's just like so many friends, and so it's gonna be so awesome. Like I'm looking forward to it so much. It's gonna be a fun, and Mankato's always fun. Like we always have a good time. That's the thing too. It's like it's never a bad time getting together with all your friends and seeing people that kind of built the program, right? And like the program is where it is today, but like it started, even Don Bros and the older guys and Darren Blue. It's like it's pretty awesome and special that I get to be a part of it.
Yeah, I'm very excited to watch, and I'm especially excited now that I know your competitive level, and I'll have a little bit more insight because as an outsider, as a reporter that is newer to those types of events, I just kind of see them as, oh, they're probably not going to give it 50%, and it's more so just the idea of seeing them all together playing. But no, there's going to be some competition there, and I do have one slightly more difficult question to answer, and only because it's a little bit more honest and relevant to the current hockey team, and you have a little taste of it with having made the NCAA tournament a handful of times, but not getting past that first round, and then now the furthest this Maverick team has gone is the NCAA Frozen Four, which is a massive accomplishment, and they were really primed in the COVID year to potentially make a run for the national championship. But it's going to get to a point, I feel like, where it's just maybe a mental hurdle, or the monkey is on the back for MSU having successful regular seasons. That's the thing. It's the regular seasons are near perfect. How can we make that translate in the NCAA tournament? Because obviously the conference tournament doesn't have a huge part. It just gives you an automatic bid.
Well, yeah, and there's so much that goes into it, right? Like the NCAA tournament, such like I don't want to say a fluky tournament, but it's like it's one game, right? And
Yeah,
it's
it
like
is. There's no series. It's one and
yeah.
done. So
So sometimes the best team doesn't win, but that's not, like I said, it's not every team goes through that. Like teams that win all these national championships is like it's hard to do, right? And I think Mankato too. It's like you play such a different style of play in the CCHA now. It's kind of weird to say, but in the new league, like even in the old league, like when we switched, my first 2 years were in the old WCHA with like all the big, all the Minnesota and North Dakotas and stuff like that.
okay, and
And
then
then
they simplified it even more, and now it's no
and it
Alaska
switched.
schools.
Yep, and it switched my last 2 years, so I was against like the fair states and stuff like that. And it's such a different style. Like they play such a defensive and hard nosed style, and then you get to the tournament, and there's other factors. It's a neutral site. There's not fans really, unless weird circumstances where you're playing North Dakota and Fargo. Like that would be cool, but like, um, and then you get different style of play. Like you got to adjust to like a Denver or like a North Dakota is going to play a lot different than what you're used to seeing with the Ferris States and the Bowling Greens and the teams like that. So like, there's so much that goes into it, and like I said, it's just one game. So I think it really is just a matter of time. I think, especially with the amount of talent that Mankato is bringing in and things like that. Like, there's so much top end talent. Like the McKay like has the record for shutouts in the world. Like whatever he's got
Yeah,
like so many
it's not
shutouts.
even close to being done yet, and he's broken the NCAA men's record. It's
And like they give up like 12 shots to some of these teams, and it's like he's still stopping them all, but like they're giving up 12 shots at the same time, right? But then you go and play like an offensive team, and you're going to give up shots. They're good, right? So like there's so much that goes into it, and like it's hard to win against those teams, especially when you haven't seen them, and you go in, you prepare, and you do all this stuff, but you still got to play the game. And yeah, it's just, I mean, there's been circumstance where you definitely should have gone further, but I think in that COVID year, they were really prime. They had going to some of the events and talking to some of the, like Michaelis and Parker Toomey and those guys. It's like they were hungry. They were
oh
really wanting
man,
all that. And like Michaelis would give me
devastating.
like oh, he was gonna pass me. So he was, they had so much going for him, and it was so heartbreaking to see how that ended for those guys. And I'm sure, like, I don't know if it's better to end like that or end the way I did. I would probably prefer to end the way I did, just because you at least got to play the game, and you lost, so like you lost, but like they didn't even get to play. So I do think it's a matter of time, and just keep. I mean, Hastings isn't going to let his foot off the gas until he gets that done, and him going to the Olympics is a big deal as well that we haven't really touched on. But like, so awesome to see that all the things that he's gotten for him. Just like him and his family, they're such good people, and Nathan Smith going to the Olympics. I couldn't even dream of that. So like, so
It's
cool for him.
unreal. I mean,
Yeah,
we didn't even know until recently that it wasn't going to be NHL players. So the fact that he gets
yeah,
happens to be having a career year, the year that it's college players going to the Olympics is awesome. And you're right. It's hard to forget. You put so much faith in what this NCAA tournament is for college hockey, but it is a one game tournament. And if UMass, who is the eventual champions, plays MSU 100 times, I mean, and you can say this because MSU swept them earlier this season, it's probably like a MSU wins 80 of them, and maybe UMass wins 20. It's just
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
difficult scenario.
yeah. If we would have played RIT, 50 times, I'm sure we're winning, more than
Majority.
40. Yeah, more than
Yeah,
40. So like, it's one of those things, but you can't dwell or like make
of
excuses.
course.
It is what it is, and the whole Palmquist push thing was big, but like we lost the game, so
Mhm.
was what it was. At least we got to play, right? So like, yeah. So I think that the program is going to get there. We'll see. I hope it's this year, and I hope they start getting a little. It's still tough to see like no like finalists for like they've had so many guys be so successful. Like McKay hasn't won the goalie award or whatever it is. Like, come on, like give us a like I don't know what it is with maybe it's the CCHA or whatever, but
It's you have to imagine it's just the conference that they're in, because there's so many teams obviously, and there's a lot of NHL caliber talent, and maybe MSU doesn't have that much, but it's just the comparison with hockey is so interesting. And we'll wrap up here, but the amount of time you guys have to go to juniors, and then by the time you're playing college, that's when you're not a lot, but older than and most college athletes. It's just a different sport, and each situation is different.
yeah. And I think Mankato, like they always, you see a lot of the older kind of guys go to, like we had, I think we were all like, I think I was young but like all my classmates when they got there were like 21, and I was 19, but I was like sitting out a year. So like when I eventually played, I was basically 21. So like they take a lot of those older guys, and like we're just more ready for the physical aspect of it, which I think helps when we play some of those younger teams.
Mm-hmm.
Really the only guy when I was Teddy Bluger, who came in as like an 18-year-old, right? And he was so advanced for an 18-year-old, but like, and today you see like they have a lot more experience, and they're a lot more, like a veteran team that plays defensively but also smart and has a lot of firepower. So it's a good formula that they got going on for sure.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for joining me. The Hail Mary podcast. We'll leave it at this, since we ended with kind of a more of a damper conversation. Just when you see the young guys, the current MSU men's hockey team, what's just one piece of advice you'll give them moving forward as they enter the second half or the later parts of the season?
I think just soak it up. Like it's something you look back on, like I really had a good time. Like I'm not gonna lie, I made a lot of memories. So like that's really what you want to do. Like you don't want to sit back and wait for things to happen. Just soak everything up. Enjoy your time with your with your brothers, I'll say, and coach, and just enjoy it and soak it up. Like there's no other thing to really say besides it's an awesome time of life. So like enjoy it while you got it, for sure.
Beautiful. Matt Leitner, everyone.
Thank you.